Every decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake. The ripples emerge, rebound off the banks in unforeseeable ways. The heavier the decision, the larger the waves, the more uncertain the consequences. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Remembrance of the Daleks, written by Ben Aronofsky. I definitely butchered that name, and is directed by Andrew Morgan, who previously directed Time and the Rani. Now, this story is good. This story is probably one of the best Dalek stories since Genesis of the Daleks. In my opinion, it is my personal favourite of the what is officially known as the Dalek Civil War trilogy, but I unofficially call it the Hour of the Daleks, not to confuse it with the Dalek Civil War duology with the Third Doctor. And this also aired during 1988, which would make it around about the Doctor Who's 25th anniversary, I believe. Yes. And although the actual story that takes place during the anniversary of the story was Silver Nemesis, which we will be talking about. A lot of people consider, especially I definitely consider this because of, I'll explain in a bit, consider this to be the unofficial 25th anniversary special. It deals with a lot of previous elements. For example, it's got the Daleks, of course, but we're also in 1963, and we also get to go to Totter's Lane, and we go to Cohill School, which was first seen in Unearthly Child. This story also revolves around the Hand of Omega, which, for those of you who've been watching my marathon, it was the case right at the beginning of the beginning, bookending the end of an era for us canon heads, as this plays off a point in the beginning, or should we say the in beginning sets it up because that one was released later. Not much to talk about beforehand. This is 4 parts long. This is the official BBC To Entertain cover, but this is the original edition with a very generic photo of a Dalek, and you can tell it's the old one because it's got the wrong picture of Sylvester McCoy. For those of you who are wondering, there is a special edition, a newer release, which has a newly designed image, and it has the right Sylvester McCoy with a lot more bonus features. But I've got this version. So what I've done is I've printed off my own cover, which I stole offline, really. Let me get it up here. So that's my cover, and ready? How cool is that? So yeah, now I've got an actual self-designed cover. Like I said, I got this off the internet. I believe it is like some 19696 hot shot website or something like that. I honestly can't remember. And now it looks neat in my collection, as it's got the right Sylvester McCoy there. So here's the spine if anyone's interested. I don't know why I keep doing this. I don't know. Most people are probably like, I don't care about the DVD. Just get on with the bloody episode already. The story actually starts off with a pre-credit sequence as we see Earth in the vastness of space, as we hear a lot of radio discussions, and we get famous lines from Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, the Duke of Weltenham, and then all of a sudden, slowly, almost like Star Wars-y, the Dalek ship comes overhead, showing that they're coming. They are about to set off on Earth. And that is our pre-credit sequence. Right off the bat, the quality of its production is so much better from the previous season. Andrew Morgan has actually stated that he was actually incredibly disappointed with his own work in Time of the Rani and felt that he didn't give his best work because he had to rush things back then. So he wanted to have an opportunity to redeem himself. And what a way to redeem himself. This story looks gorgeous. Both in like its setting and its atmosphere, but also just the camera work and its directing. And you really do get that lovely 1963 feel. Might not feel like Doctor Who 1963, but you know, you get to the places that we've seen, and all the characters are in area appropriate costumes. Despite we don't see much of 1963, you do feel it. So that's really cool. So the Doctor, now with his companion Ace, previously introduced in Dragonfire, they examine a van outside of a, I think it's I don't know if it's like an old girls' school. But anyway, they're watched by a young girl as the Doctor asks Ace to basically examine the van. What do you think about it? There's some, it's very high tech for this time period and stuff. And right off the bat, there's a huge dynamic change in the way Sylvester McCoy plays the Doctor, and just the entire feel of it. Last season, the theming was, or at least the word I would use is pantomime, and it still has that here as well. And but personally, I think it happens in like maybe all apart from Ghostlight, this kind of theatrical feeling to the stories. But here it's a lot more toned down, and when it is silly and ridiculous, it actually works to the story's favour, with the exceptions of the Dalek props, which we'll get on to. But anyway, the Doctor here is a lot more calmer. We never get the whole comedic, running around, almost Charlie Chaplin-like of the 7th Doctor from season 1. Here Sylvester McCoy plays it a lot more toned down. He's also a lot more serious than he is in this story. And he's a lot more deceiving. He tricks a lot of characters into believing one thing when really he's doing like another. He's also he's like thinking things out, and he's got this like mass plan. This is actually the first story, which is actually like the main first story in the Cardinal master plan. For those of you who don't know, the Cardinal master plan was a term created by Andrew Cardinal, the script editor of Doctor Who, during the 7th Doctor stories, who thought that the Doctor being this Time Lord from Gallifrey, and the Time Lords are these political characters and stuff, really took the mystery out of Doctor Who. And so he wanted to rectify that by basically hinting that the Seventh Doctor, or the Doctor should I say, might be something just a little bit more than a Time Lord. Maybe not like a completely different species, but like if the Time Lord, if like any other Time Lord was like this level, then the Doctor is like way above him. Andrew Cardinal has actually also said that he also likes to imagine that the Doctor has some sort of godlike powers that he never uses because they're just so like over the top. But two writers of this era, Ben Aronovich and Mark Platt, both had come up with their own origins for the Doctor, his true origins. And not only does like the Cardinal Master Plan, this whole hidden secret, play in here, we get a scene where the Doctor is explaining the Hand of Omega to Ace, in which he explains that it is a device to use to customize stars with, and the great leaders of early Time Lord society use this to gain their ability of time travel. So basically it's like the ultimate weapon. And the Doctor lets slip that, and didn't we have trouble with the prototype? And when Ace is like, what? The Doctor's like, they. To like, as if like he's given the game away. In the deleted scene, I think it's actually restored in this DVD. I can't quite remember. Right at the end of the story, someone tells the Doctor that like you're just a mere Time Lord. And the Doctor replies with, I'm far more than just another Time Lord. I don't know what that was all about. So yeah, for those of you who are interested, Ben Aronankovich actually went more in depth on what he thought his interpretation of the Cardinal Master Plan did in his novelization of Remembrance of the Daleks, where he actually goes into detail about the creation of the Hand of Omega. Basically, there were three great eternal Time Lords. You got at least beings that ruled over Time Lord society. You got Omega, Rassilon, and the other, who may or may not have been a Time Lord, might even been a species that nobody knows. And there was this thing called looms, in which people, Time Lords get basically, they get loomed, they don't get birthed like normal humans do. They're basically like genetic clones in that sense. And there's like this pool in which they have all this like information. And the other basically got bored with his eternal existence and actually threw himself into the loom machine and was resurrected in a way as the Doctor. There was also a little detail which I don't think ever got out. It might be in the novel Lung Barrow, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't read Lung Barrow, in which the other was actually supposed to be a future incarnation of the Doctor as well. So basically the Doctor like lived out his life, set out Time Lord society, got bored of being an immortal and sent right back and basically resurrected himself. So his timeline is a complete loop. So that sounds a lot, that sounds like strange, isn't it? That the Doctor would be like a huge element to Time Lord society. So maybe this could play in with the Timeless Child as well, you never know. It sounds eerily similar. Maybe Chris Chibnall took some inspiration from this. And I've just realised I've spent about 17 minutes and I've actually gone into the plot. I'll just summarise basically the plots. The Doctor and Ace, when they go into the van, they meet up with Countermeasures, a group from from the 1960s. They're basically like the 60s version of Unit. And we get to meet up with Rachel, Alice, and Group Captain Gilmore, who's basically this interpretations of the Brigadier. We also get a really funny line where the Doctor's like accidentally calls him Brigadier. But these characters, they got quite a bit into the story. I really like the relationship between Rachel and Alice. Alice is this like young girl who's basically starting out. Right, Rachel is like a professional. She used to work at Cambridge, but Group Captain Gilmore basically set her up to go into this group to examine what's been going on. And they get sent to Totter's Lane, the junkyard. The Doctor's junkyard makes its first appearance since The Unearthly Child. Which is really... No, I tell a lie. Sorry, I tell a lie. It makes another appearance in Attack of the Cybermen. It has another appearance in Attack of the Cybermen. So there's some little references to that. But it's the first time since we've seen it in the 1960s. Since The Unearthly Child, which is really cool. And basically, the army come up face to face with a Dalek, a black Dalek. I believe it's the Renegade. Yeah, the Renegade Dalek, who worship the black Dalek, and they're going up against the Dalek Emperor. They're fighting the white Daleks, the Imperial Daleks, and they each have like their own slaves, and they're trying to work out. And the Doctor is trying to get, actually, the Daleks to get their hands on that hand of Omega, but he wants the Imperial Daleks to get it. He doesn't want the Renegade Daleks, because he has a plan. He has something which he's been savouring up. This story, I mean, from when this story was released, kind of retconned a huge element of Doctor Who. Originally, and this may even be part of the Cardinal master plan, as it's originally, we were led to believe that the Doctor left Gallifrey because he was bored. He was just tired and weary, and he just wanted to escape. And he ran off, and the Doctor wanted, just to get away, and him and Susan just randomly landed on Earth, so they can escape, so they can just relax for a bit. But here we got something different. Here we learn that the Doctor actually took the hand of Omega to 1963's London. So that kind of retcon things, as now the Doctor left Gallifrey with this mass plan to take down or work out the way of the Daleks. So we won't learn until the beginning, which came out in 2013, about like the actual details of the Doctor leaving and the hand of Omega. But it's just a really cool thing. The hand of Omega takes the form of this floating coffin, and my God, the floating coffin effects look, for the majority of the story, really good. And it's really hard to believe that this came from 1988 Doctor Who. I'm sorry, I've been whiffling on through the story. I haven't really gotten into much of the details I wanted to talk about. Fun fact, the Countermeasures team, there's two things I want to talk about the Countermeasure team, which aren't plot specific, again, so I do apologise. One, Rachel mentions Quatermass and the Science Rocket team. Quatermass was one of the inspirations for Doctor Who, and was a big sci-fi franchise before Doctor Who. It was like the British main sci-fi show. I've never seen it. I do plan to watch it. I think I tried the first episode of the TV series and it's really slow and I didn't bother with it. But this kind of implies that Doctor Who and Quatermass are actually set in the same universe. And I really like that because Quatermass was like supposed to be like this massive British icon of sci-fi, and then literally like what seemed like overnight, Doctor Who became like the main British sci-fi icon. Quatermass has now fallen under cult status. And just a nice little connection between the two. And a lot of people actually state that the Doctor Who took many influences from Quatermass. So that's there for you. And another thing about the Countermeasures team is that just like Jago and Lightfoot in Talons of Wing Chiang, the Countermeasures team actually had their own audio spin-off that was so popular it had a revival, the new Countermeasures, for Big Finish Productions. I've heard 1 or 2 episodes. They seem pretty good, so check them out. I haven't actually listened to like a proper box set. I do plan on getting them eventually, but time will tell, time will tell. So it'll be really nice to listen to those when I get the chance. I don't think I'll be covering them on this marathon, but I just thought I'd let you know if you're a huge fan of them, of the Countermeasures team. Because surprisingly, like, when this story was released, everybody was like demanding a spin-off with these characters, which is really nice to know that they're so liked. Yeah, I've waffled on. I'm gonna summarize. What makes this story really good, and probably makes it one of the best Dalek stories since Terry Nation wrote them, since Genesis of the Daleks, is that this story brings back the influence of Nazi idealisms. The Daleks hate each other's gobbledygooks because one form of themselves have alternated, become different kind of blobs, as Ace states, and the renegade Daleks believe this is some sort of impurity, whilst the Imperial, believe that the renegades are inferior, and so they hate each other's chromosomes. And that, so there's this huge political messaging in here that fascists ideologies just lead to just hating everyone, even to your own kind, just on the premise that some blobs are different than the others. And this whole theme of racism plays actually throughout the stories, and not just the Dalek stuff as well, but small little moments throughout the story. We get introduced to this character. I can't remember his name, but he's on the cover. He's that guy over there. And basically, he goes into detail that with one of the Daleks is one of the characters who we're led to believe is Davros. It's like got the Dalek bottom, but it's got like a human shape at the front of it. And we believed it's Davros. And this character basically explains that during the last war, he was fighting for the wrong side. Britain won the war, which he's obviously talking about World War II. But when he voiced his opinions, when he voiced his ideas and his ideologies, then what happened then is that he was casted out of basically society, and that so basically he's a Nazi sympathizer. He's somebody who thought basically that he was fighting for the wrong side, that we should basically keep the outsiders out and the insiders in, just so you can have a fair chance, as one character explains. And it's a shame that they couldn't go more in depth I believe Ben Aronankovich really wanted to make it much more clear the racist and the fascist themes in this story, but John Nathan Turner turned it down to keep the show more aimed at kids. Again, this is an aspect which is maintained in the novelisation, with the characters actually stating racist, sexists, and bigotry remarks. At one point as well, Ace is basically hiding out in somebody's house, and she sees a sign which says "No Coloureds," which was back in then the sign that basically is like nobody. If you're a person of colour, don't enter this house. And this one of those things where it's so absurdly subtle that when I first watched this, actually for the first few times I watched this, I never picked that up. I always thought, I know I'm a complete idiot, but I always thought that the no coloured meant no coloured TV. And it was only until somebody explained it to me that what the sign was I like, oh my god, that's messed up. So yeah, it might go over the theme of Nazi sympathising and fascism along, because despite it being in 1960s London, human characters do still have these ideologies. We at least know two of them. Ben Aronankovich wanted not to hide the darker sides of the 1960s. He didn't want to pretend like it was all amazing. No, there was still racism and sexism, and it wasn't perfect. And there were people who sympathised with Nazis' ideologies and believed that we taking them down was basically just us trying to shut them up. That sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Neurotic. Sorry, I've just got way off topic here. So yeah, the whole theming of racism really bevels throughout the story. By the end of the story, let's just wrap things up. By the end of the story, the Imperial Daleks get their hands on the Hand of Omega after the Daleks after the Imperials tracked down the renegade Daleks and took it from them. It's also here that we get introduced to the Special Weapons Dalek, which only appears in this story for the longest time until I'm trying to remember which story. Asylum of the Daleks. It appears again in Asylum of the Daleks and the Witch's Familiar. But for the longest time, this was the only appearance of the Special Weapons Dalek. And despite the fact that it never talks, it looks so goddamn cool. The bottom half seems to be rusting and leaking, and it's got this massive weapon. It's basically a Dalek tank. There's the image of it on the cover there, which is really cool. And it's a shame that we didn't get to see more of it. I can't remember if it was destroyed or not. But anyway, the Imperials get their hands on the Hand of Omega, destroying the renegades. And the Doctor basically sets up a TV so he can talk to the Dalek Emperor on their spaceship. The Doctor also explains that the Hand of Omega is a weapon which should allow him to basically change history to a mass degree. There's also a huge theme of keeping the timeline in sync, especially with Ace's jukebox gets destroyed and the Doctor's good. The Daleks are some of the most ruthless creatures, and they wouldn't even be so stupid to leave some high-tech technology just roaming around in 1960s London. because it could alter the very fabric of time itself and create havoc throughout space and time. So the Doctor starts talking to the Dalek Emperor, and it is also revealed that it is actually Davros. Davros is the leader of the Imperial Daleks, which is should have been a bit obvious if you've seen the previous Dalek story television-wise. Is it Revelation? I believe it was Revelations of the Daleks. Yeah, Revelation of the Daleks, because the Daleks that worked for Davros were the white ones. It was revealed in the story that the leader of the one that the human character was talking to was actually the Daleks' battle computer. And what they have done is that they've enslaved a little girl's mind and used her creativity for their battle computer. What it says on the tin. And we get probably one of the most iconic Seventh Doctor moments as he basically pushes Davros to go, come on, use the device. He starts off by basically making a massive amount of insults, and we get one of the most funniest moments where Davros is basically quoting as like, the Daleks will become all powerful, almighty, and then the Doctor's like, conquer the lesser races, unlimited right queen, etc., etc. Basically taking the mick out of him and just like egging him on until Davros actually threatens to use the hand of Omega to send the pulse into Skaro's sun and making it the source of unimaginable power, allowing them to change time to a mass degree and allow them to have infinite power and basically all of the power but with no responsibility. They can do whatever they want. And to that point the Doctor starts acting cowardly, as if to be like, no Davros, don't do it. But Davros is determined and he commands them to use the hand of Omega. And the pulse goes through into the sun of Skaro. But something goes wrong. The sun turns supernova, destroying Skaro. Yes, this story actually sees the end of Skaro, a plot point which was never actually picked up on. Later stories would imply that the Time War... that's another thing. This story is actually retroactively interned as the point where the Time War officially began. All the previous notions of the Time War, like Genesis of the Daleks and an audio story which we didn't tackle called the Apocalypse Element, were basically like the precursor to the Time War. But here is retroactively considered the starting point of the Time War, when the Doctor tricked Davros into destroying its own sun. That is where, the Renegades and the Imperials will team up together, sort out their differences, so they can destroy and conquer Gallifrey. Here it is, the war is began. And it also shows like the really manipulative Seventh Doctor, which everybody seems to like. And yeah, Sylvester McCoy's performance in this, with it a lot more toned down and a lot more serious, really bloody works. Who knew that from the previous stories that we've been tackling, that Sylvester McCoy can do some really heavy hitting drama, and it really does work. And so the pulse actually heads back to the Dalek ship, where we see Davros seemingly escaping. And before the story ends, the Doctor actually tracks down, the army tracks down and surrounds the last surviving Dalek of the Renegades, the leader, the Black. Supreme Dalek. And the Doctor seriously goes up to it and like basically talks itself into killing itself. That there's no hope, no chance. Surrender and become a prisoner, or don't. It's your call. To which the Dalek then self-destructs. Again, showing just the secretly, like, the Seventh Doctor's like secretly the most evilest Doctor. I think out of all of the main Doctors, he's easily by far the closest we've had to becoming a villain, which is really cool. And that is Remembrance of the Daleks. Overall, it is easily the best Seventh Doctor story so far. Well, in terms of the TV stories, I personally actually liked Red a bit more, but that's a story for another day. Actually, we've tackled about that before, so watch that one if you haven't already. But this is a really good story, and it is the first story where a lot of people fell in love with the Seventh Doctor, including myself. Ace is a lot of fun in this, as we see her innocence, we see her brashness, but also as well she's kind of toned down as well. She doesn't actually do the whole Ace thing, the whole "this is my catchphrase." She never does that, and she comes off more like a normal teenage girl. So tidy, really cool. And the Daleks and the theming of fascism really, really pays off. And there you go, that's Remembrance of the Daleks. So join me next time where you're not allowed to be sad. You must always be happy, happy, happy. And I'll see you next time for the Happiness Patrol. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!